bring you some relief for that tight lower back. Hi, my name is Mariah. Welcome to Wellthy Boss. I am a barre, yoga, Pilates, and meditation instructor. And every week I bring you new videos here on YouTube and on my website. So go ahead and subscribe if you would like more of that. But for today, we're completely focusing on loosening up any tight lower back tension, pain, anything of that sort. I tend to experience a little bit of low back pain myself, so these are some of the things that really bring me relief. Of course, every person's back pain and cause of back pain is unique, so please make sure you're checking with your doctor first to make sure that the movement patterns that we do today are appropriate for you, especially the twisting and extension. But if you're generally just suffering from a tight or stiff lower back and compression, these should feel really yummy. Couple of props to think about before we get started. I am today going to be utilizing a couple of either pillows or rolled up blankets that are a little bit more oblong in shape. If you have a yoga bolster, that's great. Otherwise, you can tend to find things from around the house. I'm also using, it's heavy, a sandbag, which is an actual yoga prop. And this is going to be something we put on our feet to add a little bit of weight later. Of course, if you don't have a yoga sandbag, it's a little bit more of an unusual prop. No worries. You can kind of makeshift one from something kind of heavy that moves around, like maybe a bag of rice or a heavy bag of flour. And honestly, you can still get a lot of benefit even without the sandbag. I'll also link to my favorite sandbag here from Hugger Mugger. I like this one because it's pre-filled, so it's already ready to go as soon as you get it. All right, let's go ahead and begin. So we're gonna go ahead and get started from a child's pose, taking the forehead down to the mat, drawing the shoulder blades back. Just be here for a couple of breaths to start to deepen our inhales and our exhales. And help loosen up all the muscles around the spine. Moving into a little bit of some dynamic stretching to warm up the spine forward and backward. We'll cycle through some downward and upward facing dog. So go ahead and tuck the toes to begin. My fingers are spread wide, and I'll pick my knees up, sending my hips up to the sky. So heels start to reach towards the mat. If yours don't touch the mat today, no worries. Feeling some nice length in the back of the hamstrings. Letting the spine lengthen out, the calves lengthen. Beautiful. And then go ahead and take knees down to mat. You're gonna then extend the legs long. Go ahead and drop down. Hands can remain next to the chest, lifting up for a little cobra or even an upward facing dog. So we only want to lift as far as feels comfortable on the low back. It's also important that rather than just compressing back, we're kind of opening from the chest first. So draw the shoulders broad. So it's more like you're lifting up than you are lifting back. Good. We'll come back to that child's pose to come through to our down dog today. Today's a nice gentle one, so we don't have to do anything too involved. Tucking the toes, take the hips back, press it back. Nice deep breath. Start to rock the weight forward. Go ahead and take the knees down, taking elbows by the ribs. And then we lift up, upward facing dog. You can even begin to lift the quads off the mat. If that feels comfy, if it feels too tight for your low back still, then skip it. We'll find that child's pose, hips come towards heels, and then right away tucking the toes, lift the hips up for our down dog. Couple more breaths here. Drop the knees down, take it forward. Taking the belly down first, and then lifting up as far as feels comfortable for you. And we're going to press the hips back, this time coming into our rabbit pose. So we're going to take the hands behind us, and I'll switch views so you can see this one from the side. Okay, so with those hips over the heels, so this is our child's pose. Here on my face. And we're going to come up on the hippie toes, just like we're going to come into a downward facing dog. But this time we're going to leave the knees on the ground. We're going to start to ground in the back. Take the head on the ground, and then reach for those heels And you're drawing your belly button kind of in and up and stretching across the shoulders, reaching the mid back up to the sky. A couple of yoga breaths in and out through the nose here. And go ahead and relax out of that. Lifting ourselves up into seated. And then from here, we're gonna start to work into some of our yoga props. So I'm gonna take, depending on how tight you are, you might want a couple of rolled up blankets or a rolled up blanket and a long pillow. I'm gonna take my right leg inside, so I take the heel in towards the groin, and then I'm gonna position those props. You could also even have a block, depending on if you're really tight, you could even have an extra yoga block on top to prop your forehead on, kind of get everything situated. And then we're taking a little bit of a twist, so we feel a deep release here on the right side of the waist, and just kind of relax it down. Now, it's up to you, depending on how tight you are, what you want to do with your hand. If you take it forward, I just want to be careful that you're not leaning too far forward over the shoulder. I still want you to think about kind of lifting the heart a little bit, but maybe even the hand to the opposite leg can feel nice here. If the foot is available, you can grab onto it, but don't struggle to get there. We're going to take some nice deep breaths, just relax into the music. If flexing your foot is creating too much tension or strain or allowing you to, or rather not allowing you to relax, then you can let go of that. Thinking about melting the right side of the seat heavy into the ground. Should be feeling this all around the outer side of the waist, which for me tends to be one of the areas that gets the most tight. And then we're going to switch positions. So before we had our shoulders squared, now we're going to pick ourselves up and go a little bit deeper. So we're actually now going to look at our toes and then melt over it. Again, if this feels kind of uncomfortable having your face smushed, you can have a yoga block just in your forehead to lift that up if you like. If the foot's available, I'm a little tighter today, so I'm just going to be relaxing into that stack of pillows and blankets. And the height of the blankets does matter, so if you feel like this is pretty uncomfortable, add another stack on top and it should feel a little bit better. We're going to be holding this one for several moments, so just settle in. The more deeply you breathe into it, the more you're going to stretch and elongate the outside of the waist. So that's so helpful to breathe deeply. About 5 or 6 more breaths here. Perfect. Use your hands to help prop yourself up. Now that's a deep stretch, so we always want to come out of those deep stretches really slowly. Ooh, I definitely was able to feel that, so we're opening all that up. Let's do that on the other side. So we'll just switch the legs. So the left heel comes in towards the groin. We'll take that right leg long. And then of course we switch those props. If the blanket, like mine, got unrolled, we'll roll that up again, place that on the leg, and we'll start again looking towards me. So you'll start with the shoulders kind of stacked as you lean over your stack of pillows, maybe reaching for the outside of that foot. Hand can even maybe press away to think about drawing that shoulder back. Letting everything lengthen all the way from the hip up to the ribs. Feels so good to open everything up instead of closing and shortening, or opening and lengthening. And now if you're ready to go a little deeper, we're gonna pick the body up again, turn and look at your foot. So now you're draping yourself right over the pillows. You can grab onto the foot if you'd like. Again, just kind of putting your head somewhere that's comfortable for you. Ideally the back of the neck is long, but if that's causing you to feel a little suffocated into the pillow, you can prop your chin up. Slow, steady, deep breaths will help you get more out of it. Pressing that left hip heavy into the mat, so you're kind of lengthening a little bit of muscle involvement there, and then just draping down. Enjoying a few more breaths here. And then hands come to the ground to help lift yourself back up, noticing how much different we feel on the outer edge of the waist. And then I'm gonna get us repositioned. We're again gonna take that blanket, and depending on how big your blanket is and how tight your low back is, I'm gonna have you test this a couple of different ways. Basically, the higher and narrower the blanket, the more stretch we're gonna get, so it can feel amazing. But if your back is really tight, it could feel like it's too much. So you can either kind of fold it over a few times, or for a little bit more intensive an experience, you're gonna roll it up like a burrito, so more of a roll than a fold. And then we're coming to sit right in front of it. So the hips are gonna stay on the ground for this one. This is one of my more recent favorites for undoing, especially back stiffness. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep my hips on the ground. So this is not a supported bridge. This is our supported back bend, and then kind of ease myself down. So what I want is I want the hips on the ground, so the seat is touching, but I also want the shoulder blades relaxing easily on the ground. So if you feel like either your bum is lifting off or your shoulder blades are kind of suspended in midair, then you might want to go ahead and kind of flatten that blanket out a little bit more. If it feels good, you can then relax the legs long. Oh, I love this one. We're going to be here for several breaths, so go ahead and close your eyes. Now, the more deeply you breathe into this one, you're kind of then pushing those low back muscles into the blanket underneath you, which is kind of like giving yourself a little massage here. So the deeper you breathe, the more you feel your low back kind of pressing into the blanket, the more you're going to get out of it. So all day long we fold forward or we hinge forward. We do a lot on the forward plane of motion throughout the day. So our lumbar muscles get over tightened, overused. So now we want to bend back in that opposite direction, but also release. So typically when they're facing forward, they're contracted and forward. So now we're released and extended backwards. Melting into this, the only really action here is the lengthening of your breath as you feel the low back pressing into that blanket underneath you. Maybe taking our yoga breaths in and out through the nose. Giving your body a chance to settle in. Of course, it's important to be consistent with stretching, doing a little every day, but we often don't give ourselves long enough to get into the poses to find our true benefit. Let the muscles really relax. The muscles are not used to relaxing at all, so we need to give them some time to unwind, to settle in. Now, I could stay here all day, and you are certainly, when you do any of these stretches individually on your own, welcome to stay with this one a lot longer, but I do want to show you some other things that are going to feel good too. So we're going to start to lift the hips up, bend the knees, taking a little bit more back your supported bridge now just for a moment. We're going to slide the blanket away, and then we're actually moving to a place where the yoga mat is going to be against a wall, or really if you have carpet and if you don't even need a yoga mat, grab your sandbag if you're going to be using that, and I'll meet you over at the wall. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of kind of squirming to get into position here. What we want is to take the hips pretty close, but not all the way to begin, to the wall. Once we get into our final poses, we'll take the hips closer. So the closer you have your hips to the wall, the more intense this is going to be. And then the more that you take your feet down low, the more intense it's going to be. Now, we're not pressing too hard, but we are gently pressing the feet into the wall. And I want you to feel that the low back is pressing into the ground. So just taking some nice deep breaths here. And again, the more that you scoot your hips closer to the wall, the more you're going to feel a nice little elongation of the spine underneath you. So we're starting to work some gentle traction into the low back then by pressing the feet into the wall, lengthening the spaces between the vertebrae. And then we're going to come into our pigeon at the wall. So again, you might need to experiment with how close your hips are or are not. And then you also get to experiment with how high or low you have your feet on the wall. The lower you have your feet on the wall, the more intense it's going to be. So you're going to lift up just for a moment. So hips come up for a moment. Take the left ankle over the thigh and then drop it back down. So both sides of this seat are on the ground. You should be feeling a nice stretch along the outside of the leg that's bent. So we're stretching in our piriformis now, which can also become over tightened and create lots of back pain or irritate SI joint dysfunction. If this is too intense, you can walk your foot up a little higher. If it's not intense enough, you can walk the foot lower until it's parallel. If you're at parallel and you still need more, you could scoot those hips a little closer, taking that whole shin a little bit closer to your chest. Nice deep breaths here. Pressing the foot just a little bit into the wall, nothing too crazy. And then we're gonna try that on the other side. So I think it's most comfortable to lift the hips off the ground and then recross and lower back down. We keep a little bit of a flex in the foot to protect that bent knee. Keeping the spine flat on the ground for this one. About lengthening that hip towards the walls can make a big difference. A little bit more length in the spine as well. Gently lifting the hips to come out of that. And now we come into my favorite pose, but it takes a little bit of getting into. So for this, I'm actually gonna have you press up so that the hips are all the way to the wall. So you come all the way up to the wall. And then sliding the bum all the way towards the seat. Now this is the tricky part, is putting the sandbag on your feet yourself. If you're in my in-person class, I would come do it for you. I'm just gonna kind of be careful on your way up. Position the sandbag on the feet, try not to drop it, and then lift the legs up. Now obviously you can still do this without a sandbag, but that sandbag, kind of pushing towards the weight of your heels, is then going to serve to help press the legs down, which is then going to elongate into the spine. It should feel so, so good. Just relaxing the arms out by the side. It's going to be our final pose here. We're also reinvigorating the legs, which can tend to get a little tired. We're on our legs a lot. This is a great one. If your low back pain comes from being on your feet a lot, this can feel so, so good, but it feels good regardless. Taking some nice, gentle breaths. Letting everything melt into the ground. Giving those muscles a chance to release. Again, you're welcome to stay in this pose a lot longer. It's totally safe. The longer you stay, the better you're gonna feel. Or if you're ending your time with me, be careful not to drop that sandbag totally on yourself. You can just kind of lower the heels down so you can grab it, letting it slide off to the side. Go ahead and pick yourself up in the seat and wiggle your way out, and we did it. I hope you feel a little bit better. I hope your back feels more relaxed and loose and free. Stretching is an important component of creating a healthy lower back, but it's not the only one. There are two more what I call Pilates and yoga essentials to making sure that we're covering all the bases of having the best feeling back possible, as well as some lifestyle considerations. I put my recommendations together in a special free ebook for you. I would love to give to you. This is my Back Bliss download free downloadable ebook. I will link to that in the description below because I really want you to be able to live with more freedom from this pain and tightness. I want you to feel good in your body, and here are some things that I do that I have found that helps and that I've been able to help others with as well. So I can't wait to hear how your back is feeling. Drop me a comment below, and don't forget to download that free Back Bliss ebook.